Hi, this is Kim. I'm here with Danielle and Katya for our first official Worried About Nothing podcast with the three of us, which is very exciting. So, hi.
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 So, how are we doing?
Very well. I'm Danielle. This is my voice. You can identify it with me.
And I'm Katya, and you can hear my voice as well and a wonderful accent.
Yay. How's the jet lag?
I'm still adjusting. I'm going to bed early and waking up at 3 in the morning, so it may take a little while to get back to the normal schedule, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and how was the trip? You happy?
Well, the trip was, as I said, once I learned that my grandma passed away was a bit of a shock because of the COVID-19, and trying to travel and book your travel during these times wasn't the easiest in a way, and it was fairly easy too. I mean, when I learned about it, I managed to get my ticket for the same day. And then when we arrived there, obviously we did what's necessary. It was all the funeral and things like that. So it was lovely to see. She had a lot of, because she was still very active, and it was interesting that she still went sign up for gymnastics, and she was very active and going and on some meetings. She was always doing a lot of government work and involved in politics, so she kind of tried to stay active. And everyone was shocked. No one could believe that she passed away, so it was shock for everyone, but everything was organized really fast, and everything went well. And the travel was not a problem at all. When I arrived to Russia, I was surprised to see that there were so many people in, fully like with masks and the whole outfit, and they were measuring your temperature and kind of was taking really, really seriously. When I came to Canada, there was nothing like that. I mean, back to Canada, I mean, they just ask you some simple questions and I'm feeling sick or anything. So yeah, it was quite interesting. And on the way back, it was amazing. I had a plane that was only 1/3 full, and I had 3 seats for myself. So it was really wonderful.
Oh, nice. And you had some lovely experiences, you were saying, meeting some people, having great conversations as well.
Yes, and I was wondering, is it my, what did I do, Mercury mantra? I was like, is it to do with communication?
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, it was kind of lovely to meet with people and to chat. And a lot of people are on the same page. They actually not so much trusting in the news, but looking for alternative sources of information. So that was really lovely to see. It was just, not just in our group, but everywhere people seems to be looking for alternative sources of information.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm finding that as well, that people are just starting to trust less and less. You know, there's less of a kind of mindless, just this must be true. And I guess maybe sometimes it takes a global catastrophe to shake people up a bit. But we're, like Danielle and I spoke about this last week a little bit, about how it's interesting how people are reacting to all of this, you know, and you'd mentioned it'd be interesting to talk about attractions and aversions, and I think that's coming out so strongly in some ways, you know. So it's not just a mild attraction or a mild aversion, it's really strong either way, you know, which is so funny.
Yes, it's one way or another for sure. Some people don't believe in it, just think it's just all flared up. It's just not real. All the news, the way they made it such a big deal out of it, and some people totally panicking and totally, having this aversion to it. I was like, oh, I don't want to get sick. I need to wear all these outfits and masks and gloves and all of that. So definitely, you can see two sides of the coin.
But I loved your story about was it the Irish guy that you said that you met that missed his flight because he was so deep in conversation. I love that because it's just, I think it just shows, because with you, and we've spoken about this before, but you've just got such heart, you know. And when I find speaking for myself, that when I speak to you, I feel like I'm being sucked in. So I can imagine this guy is just being enveloped in this heart and everything else just disappeared. And then suddenly he went, oh my God, I've missed my plane.
Yes, he was mostly listening, and I'm talking about economics, about spirituality, of course, about Aratima and our Life Wisdom School. And I think we should post a link somewhere below to Aratima's Life Wisdom School. So if anyone from our audience who is interested, they might be able to learn a little bit more about it. So I was talking about that, and just keep talking, just honestly about what's happening. And he was, I guess, so absorbed into whatever I was talking, and I'm thinking he's going to miss his flight. And then he's coming back. I was like, you're going to miss your flight. And he did.
He came back.
You told him this before he actually missed his flight?
Yes.
He didn't listen to you.
I know.
Well, that's brilliant, though. But it is great, though, isn't it, that people seem to be, I guess people are looking for answers, and they seem to be more open to hearing things that might not be what they would normally accept as truth, you know. And I guess it's about not judging people as well, because I'm finding that, like I keep talking about this, I must stop talking about this, but my first little podcast that I posted, and I was just very surprised at some of the reactions that people had, and from unexpected people that I had been prejudging, you know. I've been thinking, oh no, they're not going to like it, or they're not going to listen to it, or they might say something terrible, or whatever. And some of them messaged me privately, and they just said, oh, thank you so much, that's really helpful, or that's really inspiring, or, you know. And I guess it's just things seem to be opening up more, or people are just more receptive, or I don't know what it is, but
I think it's your honesty. Once you talk, you really open your heart, and then it's the connection, the real connection, not trying to think of what's to say next, and just really be open and just speaking from whatever comes up without thinking too much about it. And your vulnerability, you can actually feel it. And yeah, it was amazing.
oh, thank you.
And since we were talking about this being honest, I found that last retreat was really amazing when we met with Aratima and Jason. I don't know if our audience know much about the retreats, but basically once you sign up for the Life Wisdom School, there is an option to go to the retreat that Aratima and Jason organizes twice a year. And the last time we met together, it was really amazing in the way that we could really be open and talk, and not necessarily just think too much about it, just be in the head, just really be present and be there.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was beautiful. And everyone is so different. Everyone that I've been to, I've missed a couple, but everyone that I've been to has been so different. But this one felt like it was the most, well, definitely most intense for me, but just generally it felt very intense, but in a different way. Because she took us really deep this time. I mean, she always does, but this time it felt like it was deep in a different way. I can't really describe it, but it was beautiful. It was very heart-led and very loving, and just, I think also, not only is it so amazing that the teachings get more profound as we kind of learn more and shed more and open up more, but I think also as we get to know each other more, there's more sharing, you know, and more vulnerability and more willingness to support each other in a different, more in-depth way. Because I think looking back into the first retreat, that was, you know, it was the first one. None of us knew what to expect. We didn't know each other in person. You know, we kind of, you know, we were in the Facebook group together, but we never actually met. And I remember my expectation, which is kind of laughable now looking back, but my expectation was, yes, this is it. I'm going to this retreat, and then everything will be sorted, which is insane. But now I know that it's just going and just having the gift of being taken deeper and having more shift, and just being held in that space of absolute love as well, and being able to appreciate it more, you know, and feel it more and absorb it more and accept it more. And I know I've spoken about this before, but I had my kind of slight mental breakdown at the last retreat, which was just such a powerful experience. We were talking about, I think Danielle and I talked about it last time, sorry to repeat myself, but it was just being able to be that vulnerable while also being able to see the ego and see the victimhood, but being able to also just let go and be complete and total failure. I'd kind of been on the course for 4 years and I was less than a beginner. It was like it was my first month, but being able to experience that and be held in that space was just beautiful. It's just so important to me. It was so profound. And I think that, and speaking to Jason and Aratima, and then having the privilege of speaking to Jason once afterwards as well, was just kind of shifting everything. And I think the more I want to continue forever, doing the Wisdom Life School, but the more that we continue, the more we just will be ourselves, be just be, you're nodding,
Yeah. Is it, Danielle, was it your experience as well from this last retreat?
Well, I like all of them. They're all different. So they all have every single one has been vastly different for me. I've had very, very different experiences at all of them. But this past one, I hate to say it, but it was my favorite. Like, I really feel that way. There's something really special about it. And I think it's just the fact that we kept revisiting just being awareness itself and getting to spend so much time in that space. There's just nothing better than that to me.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? Yeah. Being awareness.
And going back to my grandmother's death, it was quite interesting because people were asking me, "Are you sad?" And actually, I weren't sad. I wasn't sad. I totally respect her decision. I do believe that we're never born and never die. And I do respect that she didn't want to go through these difficult times, and that's why it was time for her to go. She made this decision. I guess her soul made that decision, and I totally respect it. And I didn't feel sad because, I don't know, I was actually smiling and having a lot of laughs and laughter, and just, as I said, this beautiful connection with people and just celebration of life, and know that, there will be something else for her in the future life, future incarnation. So yeah, and I guess I've seen so many deaths because my whole family passed away. Mom, dad, my cousin at the age of 25, her brother. So I've seen so much of it that at this point, it I don't know, it doesn't even, I can't say it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still a shock, but at the same time, there is no sadness to it. There is no grief to it. It's more being happy for her, knowing that she probably went into some sort of expansion, and just hoping that the next life will be more luminous for her.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's just, it shows the level of awareness you have. I think, even speaking for myself, my dad passed away about 15 years ago. And that was before I started doing any energy work, healing, exploration, way before I met Aratima. And it was the first person that I'd ever known that was close to me that had passed away. And I just remember it being very, very shocking and very difficult, because for me at the time, it was, you live and then you die and you're gone. I didn't know then what I know now. But even then, back then, there was that sense of not knowing that he went on to a better place as such. Because I was brought up in a Christian household, so it was very much, you die and go to heaven kind of thing. And I stopped believing in that years before, but but there was a real kind of connection to life. I remember when he passed, after his funeral, there was just this real strong feeling of being alive and wanting to be alive and just kind of feeling everything. It felt very raw, but there was that sense of, looking back on it now, I guess it would be known as a sense of connection or oneness or whatever it is. But it was interesting seeing everyone around me and my family reacting in different ways. You know, there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of weeping and wailing and all this kind of thing, and it brought up a lot of different things in different people. And I guess it's like what's going on now. You're kind of seeing that in people around. There's ranges of reactions. You know, there's that fear, like you were saying, Katya, about the, you know, having your temperature taken, people panicking, and you know, people walking around in spacesuits and stuff. You know, and it's interesting to see how people react. You know, it's life and death. It's such a kind of, to many people, such a final thing. I remember I was having a conversation with somebody I used to work with, and he was terrified of dying, but he kept saying, no, I'm not scared of dying, no. But he'd keep going away and then coming back and saying, so I think that when you die, this is what happens. And I go, okay, that's fine. And he'd go, no, it does. And he'd go away and come back and go, no, I've got a different theory. When you die, this is what happens. And I'm like, why are you so into making this big story about what happens when you die, you know? And I said, well, how about if nothing happens? And he was like, oh, he went to meltdown, you know? And I felt not mean exactly, but it was very amusing to me. Just because it was just, I don't know, maybe I was being a bit judgmental, but it was just that's such a, you know, desire to believe that when you die, because his last theory that I remember was that he said, when you die, you just go into an alternative universe and you carry on living exactly the same as you are now. I was like, okay. And then he spent an hour trying to convince me that this was true, and it was like, yeah, okay, fine, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, he thinks if he can convince you, he can convince himself.
Yeah.
But that's what he actually believes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was a very convoluted story as well. I was like, wow, you've put a lot of thought into this.
Well, I remember, I haven't had a chance to read it, but there is a whole book. I think it's Tibetan book about living and dying. So
yeah, I've not read that either. Yeah, but so with you, when did your parents? So your parents, they died close to each other, or what happened?
Well, no, my father died when I was 7, and my mom died when I was 15.
Oh wow, so you were young.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen the death since I was little.
Wow. What was it like, if you don't mind me asking, for when you were a child? It must have been
Of course, it was terrifying. I guess to some extent I kind of knew, because my mom had a cancer, and I kind of thought that she might be dying, or she will be dead at some point. And what it was for me is, because I had so much freedom with my mom, and that loss of freedom, because I lost my freedom, I ended up being with my grandmother, and she wouldn't let me go anywhere. Like, she wouldn't even let me go for a run. I had to go study and come back home. So that lack of freedom, and my mom would let me do anything. Like, I was totally free since I was little. So that was a big loss for me. For a year, I was definitely crying every day. And then it's kind of, it's, people say time heals. And then I was fine after that. And I kind of, to some extent, like, I don't feel sad anymore. I know that because she's dead, or because she passed away early, I am where I am now. I had an opportunity to go and learn English abroad. I had an opportunity to move 2 countries. And this would never happen if my mom was still alive. So to some extent, new opportunities opened up for me. So it depends how you look at it.
Yeah, it is about perspective, I guess, isn't it? When you look back on your life, because it can be so fascinating to sort of see things that happen push you onto a different road or a different turn, or like with me, for example, I was adopted when I was a baby, and I was born in South Korea, and I don't even know if I had parents or mum and father separate. I don't know, but I was put up for adoption, and before my parents adopted me, an American family decided they wanted me, but then the woman got pregnant, so they decided they didn't. So I could have had two very separate lives. I could have carried on living in South Korea, or lived in America, been American, or the life that I had, and it's so interesting how sometimes, I guess everything shapes your life, but how, big changes can really drastically turn you off the road to a completely different way.
And it also helped me to learn a lot, to become more independent, and to actually grow up and start taking care of myself.
I still need to do that.
It's probably where you get your practicality from.
Yeah.
You have to learn it at a young age.
Well, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do things. And then magically, like at the age of 14, I had to look after my mom. So it was like complete, from being totally spoiled to start looking after my mom. So it's like complete turn of the events. And yeah, I had to grow up fast, I guess.
Yeah, as long as I've known you, you've always had that very deeply nurturing quality, that kind of looking after people. We sometimes joke about, do you remember the first retreat when I just went out, spaced out completely on the beach when Jason was doing that song? Do you remember that? And I couldn't walk. And you were on one side pulling me down the beach. He was like, I will get you back to the car. I will get you home.
You remember I was trying to feed you eggs in the morning.
It was so funny. But it was that kind of practical motherly thing, I'll make sure you're okay. It's one of my fondest memories. But yeah, but I guess it's kind of whatever we experience shapes us to a certain degree, doesn't it? And it's an interesting thing though, isn't it? That kind of nature versus nurture, how what we are, or who we are, characteristics rather than what we are, come from the upbringing and the experiences we have, and how much is ingrained, how much is passed down and genetic and karmic and all of those things. I mean, when I was younger, I decided to study psychology because I just wanted to get to the bottom of this, understand it all, And obviously I didn't, because the psychology course was not that. It was not that. But it's just always interested me as a child, especially growing up in the family that I did, where we all looked so different, So my mum was Polish and my dad was Scottish, and I was from South Korea, and my sister was from Hong Kong, she was Chinese. And people's reactions to us, would often make me laugh, make us all laugh. Because things like they try and make us feel better about being a family. So at one point we all wore glasses, so people would say, oh yes, I can tell you're family because you all wear glasses. It was kind of like, okay. Yeah, I can see the similarity, but we're from 4 different corners of the planet. How could you think? Things like that. But people sometimes feel they have to say things to make themselves feel comfortable, because we were fine with it, obviously, having grown up with it,
Danielle, what about you? Have you had any experiences yourself?
Experiences with death. Let's see. Not anyone real close to me has ever passed. I've had friends who have had relatives that they were pretty close with pass. So I've been, aware of death in that capacity. All of my grandparents are gone now, but I wasn't as close to them as I am with my immediate family, which I know that'll probably be a lot more difficult to deal with, because when you grow up you kind of get a sense, people have grandparents who die. It's kind of like a normal thing. But when you get older and you start thinking about, oh wow, well eventually my parents are going to be my grandparents' age and they're going to die, and then I guess I'm next sort of thing, if you're going to go in the order of birth. which you usually think hopefully that people will live out what we would consider a full life and live to an older age. So then we wouldn't have, parents bearing children, which unfortunately happens all too frequently, in my opinion. But I agree with Katya that our souls make decisions before we get here, and for whatever reason, maybe people decide their souls, it's their, I don't know, karma, I suppose, to be born and only live for a couple hours, and that's what all the souls involved had to experience. So yeah, I don't know, a little bit of a tangent, but that's kind of where I'm at.
But it's so fascinating, and I'll stop using that word, but the things that our souls decide to do, not only to be born, but to have the experiences or to live the lives that they do, whether you believe in past lives or reincarnation or whatever it might be, because I've had some, and whether you kind of believe it as fact or believe it as an explanation or believe it as whatever, won't even go there. But before meeting Aratima, I had quite a few past life past life regression experiences, and just remembering some of those lives very vividly, so.
Oh, wow. Can you
I would say
talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I had a few. So, God, I can't remember now. It was a few years ago, but I should have maybe tried to remember before I started talking about it.
Oh, don't worry about it.
I did some past life stuff on my own, like guided past life regressions off of YouTube. So I had at least one that I got very, I remembered the way that they walked me through it. And I find it helpful, and tell me, Kim, if this is the same for you, to have had those experiences, because then you really realize that you're not the body. It helps that to be more real.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, yes, it's a really good way of putting it. It was kind of because I don't remember the details so much because there were a few years ago. I'm going senile, so I can't remember anything. But yes, it was very much the familiarity of remembering, because when I was talked through them anyway, they were so intense, and I had a couple that were several hours long, so there were a few lives that were remembered, and I went really, really deep. And waking up, there was a really strong sense of remembering them, and also being able to see how they connected to this life, because the way that it was done with me, or the experience I had, was I was taken back to a life and then taken through to the soul leaving the body, and then seeing or being able to visualize and experience the soul. And again, this is terminology, but having a meeting with the soul council, or the high council, or whatever you want to call it, and making a choice to come back as the next incarnation of the body, and being able to know why you chose it. So it felt very profound. And being able to see that and go through a couple of those life experiences, or I think it was 2 or 3 in a row, and seeing the choices, and then at the end waking up and remembering them, and being able to look at the present life and see why, or see the way that the experiences came through to this life and why those lives were chosen, was fascinating, actually. And I remember being in front of the high council, soul council, whatever you want to call it. And there was one, if I remember rightly, I'm jumbling this, I know, but I was kind of led through a series of questions that weren't verbalized, but it was just I felt them, or I knew them. And it was about choices. So there's always the choice to come back on a certain level or something like that, if I remember rightly. And I remember there was one life that I decided to come back as a certain incarnation because there was a relationship I'd had in the previous life that I wanted to then continue with this soul. And it was being able to see the sort of the soul family, and the recognizing the souls as you see them all in between lives, and then all choosing to come back, and a few of them came back in the same life at the same time with me. And again, who knows if it's in inverted commas true, or whether it's the mind making it up, but it felt very non-mind, I don't know. But it was very interesting.
Yeah. Sounds fascinating. And I wanted to ask you, I know that, I don't know if our audience knows or not, that you're doing some soul reading. And I was just wondering if it's somewhat linked to the experiences that you had, or is it something completely separate from that?
I don't really know. I've not really thought of that, actually. That's a very good question. Yeah, I do soul readings, and I think it's one of those things that I think even from a young age, I could kind of see things that I didn't at all understand. And I could feel things I didn't at all understand and hear things I didn't at all understand, And I've done over the years, I've done, healing courses and energy healing and psychic reading courses, all this kind of thing. And people would always say, oh yeah, you're very in tune. You can always, you can always pick up on things, But it wasn't until meeting Aratima and just going through her course and just being able to shed or not all of them, there's still a lot of personal stuff there, but enough of the personal to be able to be objective and be able to see things clearly without seeing it completely through the lens of what I was interpreting it as. But I think the stage I'm at, and I was telling Danielle, I think once, I can't remember if it was on the last call or another time, but I remember something Aratima said to me that was just so perfect, was that she said that, you see things and you know things, but now what you need to do is you need to walk across the bridge of compassion and meet the person where they are at, as opposed to from that distance of seeing it. And that's a very important, I feel, part of the journey for me right now, is to actually meet people in that compassionate space rather than just being able to see everything. Well, not everything, but, seeing a lot of things from that distance, from the ivory tower distance of kind of, oh, I see you, but, I'm untouchable and all, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of, and just meeting people in the heart. I think it's all about the heart. I think that's, again, going back to the retreat, that feels like it was such an important part. Was, for me, it was just so much about the heart. So that's a rambling answer to your question. I think we all see things, I think everyone is born with being able to see things. We all have a third eye. We all have that ability. And I think it's, from what Aratima says, true seeing is through the third eye and through the heart at the point where they meet. And I've just kind of I'm good at seeing through the third eye, but just opening the heart to bring that together now, But you guys can see things. You guys are very, very intuitive.
I can't see anything, but for me it's direct knowing. I have a strong thought that comes to my mind and I just kind of go with it. But no, I can't see anything.
No, you have the knowing, though. That's kind of the same sort of thing. It's that awareness.
Danielle, what about for you? Can you see things?
I think more naturally it ends up being a knowing, but when I do certain things, it's interesting because in the psychic course, I'll get visuals when I'm doing that. Like, I think it's easier for me to interpret that I'm actually picking up something psychically if it's coming to me in images, because the knowings, which, I mean, you still have to use your knowing to interpret the images that you're seeing, but if it was just a knowing, I don't know that I would accept it as something I was reading,
And you think about psychic course, can you talk a little bit more about it?
I mean, it's been going on for a while now. It started in November, I think, October or November. And we decided to do an additional 6 calls. Like, everyone in the group wanted to keep going with it.
And this is with Aratima, right?
Yeah, with Aratima. And a lot of what we were doing in the psychic course after we got outside of the initial calls has really been a lot of focus on people want to be able to hear their higher guidance, really tap into that. And we did some stuff on healing too. It's funny because I feel like a lot of the calls that we did in the course aren't necessarily something you'd think about as them being part of a psychic course. So it's been interesting.
In what way? How do you mean?
Just like with the healing and stuff like that, like people really want to learn how to do healing, or they're interested in higher guidance. And normally when I think of psychism, it's more like reading other people, you know, being able to see things, or like looking into the future or something, you know, like generic kind of thoughts people have of what psychism is. And that's not what the people in the group were seeking.
Interesting. And I thought maybe we can also post a link. I don't know if it's still active, the course. So, I mean, at the bottom of our
I think the
YouTube channel.
MP3s can still be bought.
Okay.
I don't know about joining in on the calls, maybe.
You get the recordings, so wouldn't you, of the calls, I guess?
I'm not sure. I don't know how it works. I've been in it from the beginning, so.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I thought if anyone wants to join, even if it's a recorded call, it might be useful if we post some links.
Yeah, definitely.
I will do that. As we're going to chat, you know, and as we have conversations, so many things are going to come up. And I think that could be a really interesting, not sideline exactly, but, you know, as things come up, we can either do conversations about them, you know, separate conversations about them, or they could lead to YouTube videos, or, you know, because I think one thing I would love to talk to you about, Katya, at some point is, you know, the creativity that you have and the making things. And I remember Jason has said that it'd be great if you did a series of videos, and I know that you don't feel that's right now, but it just, at some point, that'd be fascinating. You know, I mean, Danielle and I have spoken about this, but, you know, sometimes the most interesting things about us are things that we take for granted, or things that we don't see in ourselves. And it's the things that other people go, wow, I'd be so interested to learn more about that. You know,
and that's true.
You know, everyone can make cakes, or everyone can whatever. Well, I can't make any cakes, but, you know, whatever it is, bad example.
And when you said about creativity, the first thought came up, I was like, I'm not creative. What are you talking about?
Whereas let's see, you're very creative. Definitely.
Do you ever post any of your stuff on Etsy?
No, I have not.
Do it, because then we'll put a link and we'll let other people decide how creative you are.
Yeah, exactly. Put a vote at the top. Do you think this woman is creative? Yes or no?
Right. Check out her Etsy and tell us what you think in the comments below.
This is funny.
I think part of this having a conversation is to Danielle and I think we spoke about it on the retreat, actually, if I remember rightly, but it was just about helping each other to see what we're good at, because, you know, sometimes it can be so hard to know yourself, what you're good at, you know, and helping us do that, and just being able to support each other doing it, you know, like you've been talking about links, and I think it'd be great if we could have links to all sorts of stuff, you know, so it's like Katya's Etsy page, and Danielle's this, and, you know, my whatever, and, you know, and just encourage that kind of the creativity and the whole thing about being born with gifts, or having gifts that we don't necessarily use. I mean, this is something that people say to me quite a lot. So, you know, they'll say, you've got so many gifts, and I'll go, what do you mean? What gifts? You know, I'm kind of clueless when it comes to myself, but that kind of thing, you know, just being able to even formulate them, or having to talk about them, or just getting that impetus to do something about them, is all what this feels part of. You know, it feels like it's kind of a bigger than, or it can have more potential than we might see right now, you know.
And when we talk about it, I think we become more aware of it, because once I keep having this conversation, I was like, oh wow, I've done this and this and this in my life, and I never thought about it. I just took it for granted, and people are like, wow, this is amazing, and I was like, oh, maybe it is. So just talking about it, I think, really helps to recognize those things, and to not take them for granted, and really appreciate and share those things with everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also bringing different strengths as well, you know. I think because we're all doing the Wisdom Life course, and we all met through Aratima, but we're also got different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses, and different aversions and different attractions, you know, and all of that working together has so much potential to be really interesting too, because it's kind of helping each other through the areas that we don't see, or using our strengths to help, you know. It's, you know what I mean, it's just kind of the balance of it all. Fascinating. I love it.
It is.
I'm doing so much talking, I'm going to stop now. You go.
Well, now I'm learning how to play didgeridoo. As you can see,
Are
there's
you?
one right there. I still haven't learned how to play it.
Oh, right. I talked about you playing our intro and outro music.
I still haven't mastered my circular breathing one day.
It's quite tricky though, isn't it? I've heard, yeah, I've seen people who can play it, and they say it's complicated, but good for the lungs, though, I guess. She'll embarrass you and ask you to do a demo.
It will sound more like a fart.
Maybe another time. I think another thing that is good is that one of my sort of things I'm focusing on at the moment is being held accountable for stuff. And I think if I say it out loud and it's recorded, it makes me even more needing to do it. You know, it's there. It's not just something I'm kind of thinking. And that's also a good thing for me as well, from my perspective.
And good for you to join today. That was really good.
Yeah, I know. I did try and chicken out. You're right. It's like, well, you know, you can't cancel these things.
I'm really glad you decided to join in, because, you know, I feel like maybe I felt something about it, but not consciously, you know? I don't know. It's not something that stood out to me that I was like, oh, wow, Kim's like ditching us, or it feels really inauthentic that Kim's, you know, not going to be on the call with us. Nothing like that. But there was some sort of reaction that I couldn't identify in myself. So for whatever that's worth.
No, thank you. Well, there's that kind of, I guess there's still the element of hiding, you know, that kind of, I still get a bit nervous before we speak, even though I know you both. And part of it was like, oh, that's an excuse, I can jump on that one. Okay, I'll use that one. That's a valid excuse. I'll understand that one. You know, they're women. They know what it's like. You know,
and it's amazing to see you. You just talk so beautifully, and there's just so much confidence. So it's really amazing to see that there is some hiding behind it.
Maybe it's just from inside here. I don't know, but there's less and less than there was. But working through it, getting there. Yeah.
We all have our different obstacles to face here, because you know, listening back to our recording, I don't really have a huge aversion to my voice anymore, but I'll hear you talk and then I hear me and I'm like, oh boy. Like, it was all lovely, speaking very nice, evenly, beautiful accent, and then I'm over there talking however I talk. You know? However it sounds to me.
I thought the opposite. I was going, oh, but Danielle's talking so clearly. It's really nice. And I'm shouting into the microphone and talking really fast and getting really excited. And it's funny. It's all the judgment, the self-judgment again. But it was very helpful to have to edit the recording, because I couldn't just skim through it. I had to actually listen. And that was good to kind of be able to listen to and it wasn't from wanting to listen to change anything, but just listening to try and just not have aversion towards it at all. And by the end of editing, it's only part one that I did, but the end of editing that hour, it was like I could listen to myself without going, ooh, or cringing, or, you know. I think that's an important thing to do as well. It's like Jason said to me the other day. He was saying that, you know, as he edits his videos, he just found that he's feeling more and more love for himself in a really beautiful way, not in a egocentric way, but just he's going, well, I just love this guy and his honesty and the fact that he's really saying things from the heart and he's putting himself out there, and it's amazing, you know. And I thought that's an aspiration. That's such a lovely thing to kind of aim for, because we all should do more of that. You know, we kind of, so many of us grow up being taught not to love ourselves or to put ourselves down or whatever it is. And just to be able to kind of go, yeah, my voice is great, or I say such good things, or whatever. Not that I think that, but you know, I think it's important for us to get into that space of just loving who we are, kind of warts and all, you know, and just accepting it rather than having those moments of, oh, that's awful, or that's horrible, or I don't like this, or I don't like that, because it causes separation, and it kind of causes this kind of jigsaw puzzle of picking that bit out. You don't like that bit of the stew, or you don't like that bit, but you like that bit, that's okay. But it's such a waste of energy as well. Says me, like I've done it, you know. That's the goal.
Yeah,
You already
Kim,
practiced. Go ahead.
when you're editing, if you notice anything, please give me whatever feedback that you have in terms of anything you hear, if it's microphone stuff, anything else that can be improved, because I want this to be the highest quality that we can produce. I re-listened to the entire track when I was looking for places where I could cut it, but even before that, or where you could cut it, but where I could make suggestions for cuts. But I did re-listen to the whole thing because I wanted to see what we talked about, because the conversation kind of just meanders and it's all cohesive, but it does kind of ebbs and flows in different directions. But in listening back to it, I felt like there was that sort of, wow, we talked about that. And even re-listening to the things you said, even me re-listening to the things I said, I'm like, this is actually even helping me. Like, I'm helping myself kind of by listening to what I had to say. I'm like, yeah, that was good. Like, I kind of get that. Yeah, all right. Because hearing it, you're in a different place listening to it than you were when you were speaking. So it's just really interesting to hear kind of what kind of insight came out at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as you're speaking, it's all coming from the inside, and you don't have the opportunity that you do when you're listening back to be able to almost see it or hear it as a stranger. You're hearing the conversation rather than being in the conversation. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah. Did you get the chance to listen, Katya? I know it was long.
Yes,
And you
I did.
back.
Yes, I needed to unpack my suitcase, and then I had a chance to listen to the whole conversation. So that was lovely. And talking about self-love, that's what I'm feeling, that the more we feel love for ourselves, the more audience we might have that might want to listen to us. So I think it's important to reach that barrier where we no longer kind of cringe at our own voice and actually enjoy it. Maybe not enjoy, but really accept it and just be happy for what's happening.
Just be ourselves. I think it's, when I had that conversation with Jason and I was going, oh no, but my voice. And he said, well, but why don't you want people to see you for who you are? I want people to see who I am. I'm great. I was like, yeah, you're so right. This hiding again, this ridiculousness of, learning all these profound lessons from Marathi Mind Jason, learning all this wisdom, not necessarily embodying it very well, but kind of thinking through, and then refusing to share that and hide away and go, oh, no, I've got nothing to say, which I've been saying for years and years. It's actually really disrespectful to them, and I know it's not about, they both told me, it's not about doing this out of respect for them, but choosing to hide and not share what I know is the opposite of respectful. And choosing to not be seen is very disrespectful to myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like not loving yourself.
Yeah. You're not important enough to be seen, and going back to my first podcast, it's like some of the things that people were saying was just so heartwarming, and so many people could relate. And that surprised me because, you're sometimes in your mind, maybe it's just me being immature, but sometimes in my mind, I think, oh, well, there won't be many people who will relate to what I'm saying. But some of the feedback I got from that was so many people going, oh my God, I'm going through that too, or I know what that's like, or thank you for verbalizing that, and I think that's one thing that we might not see in ourselves, but just sharing openly or heartfeltly, sharing what we're experiencing or whatever's going on, or our journeys, there will be people out there that can relate. And even if there aren't, just sharing it is a good thing to do, just getting it out there, getting yourself out there.
Yeah, I know there are certain points where I feel, and it's like, I don't know, maybe minutes or seconds sometimes, but it's like, yeah, I really want to put myself out there. Like I really want, people to see me. I feel kind of like this sense of vitality or something moving forward for me. I'm like, yeah, I need to share this with someone. I need to share myself with some people. I got to go hang out with people or something. But it's not super frequent, but it's like I know that that's real when I experience that, opposed to the shying away. and hiding.
Yes, yeah, it is real, because it's the whole thing that Aratima talks about, being in the core. Because when you're in the core, you're naturally real. So there isn't that thought of, because it's all ego thought, the whole, oh no, I don't want people to see me, or I'm hiding, or this, that, and the other. It's all the ego. But when you're in the core, and again, I'm talking as if I do all the time, which is ridiculous, I don't. But just the moments when I do, it's that knowing that you're in the core. And of course you're going to be yourself. Of course you're going to shine. Of course you're not going to hide, because there isn't even that thought, and it's just that beingness. And that again is a good lesson doing this, is that, because one of my things I do is that when I hit some of the rubbish and the blocks and all that stuff, or I feel fear or I want to hide, I just completely leap out my body and completely out of the core. So this is such a good thing to do, to have to try and remain in the core while sharing, while having the scary thoughts, until it becomes natural. So it's such a good experience in so many ways to do this.
It is. And you know what I found? Once you share yourself, and even through those conversations that I had, I found it's really fulfilling. It's like, I don't know, it felt great. It's just you sharing and speaking from the heart, and people wanting to listen to you. And I feel that's the connection people craving. And there is not enough of that in the world. So I wish more people were speaking from the heart. And I think this world would be much more happy and joyful place.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just such a good example of doing that, because you do. And I'm glad you're both on the calls with me for so many different reasons. One of the reasons I'm glad you're on, Katya, is just the heart, shining heart, because it just keeps reminding me to be there, to be in that place. Because you're right. And when you have those conversations from that place, people just feel love. They feel the love that you are, not you only, but us, one. Feel that love that you are. And like you say, people are really starved of it. People are not really loved. So many people have troubled upbringings and have troubled relationships. And I'm one of those. I had terrible relationships. None of them were about love. They were about familiarity, or the patterns, or the suffering, or the pain, or whatever it is. But just to meet Aratima and Jason, and to really know what it's like to be truly loved, was such a mind-blowing experience. And that's so important to share, because the more love that can be shared, like you say, the better the world will be. Just even feeling it, just kind of emanating it. So at that time, was it the last retreat I was at? I think Aratima had, shared so much Shakti with us, and it was just all full of love, And I remember I went to the airport and I arrived really early, so I got to the check-in place, and when you sit just outside where you board the plane, and there were all these empty seats around me, and everyone was arriving, and I didn't notice at first, but then I started noticing that everyone was sitting near me, and there was like so many empty seats around, further away, but everyone was sitting really, really close to me. And then I realized it's because I was so full of Shakti, was so full of love that Aratima had shared with us, that everyone just didn't necessarily know consciously why they wanted to sit next to me. And so at one point I looked around, and there's about 50 people just sitting really crowded next to me, and nobody sort of the seats further away. It was so funny. But that's what it's like, isn't it? People just feel it.
And you don't even have to say anything. You can just be there, be present. People will start gathering around you. And you won't have a place to hide away.
Damn it. Oh, thank you guys. Sorry I talked so much. I just don't get a bit carried away.
Oh no,
it's lovely to hear you.
I
think we both enjoy, right, Danielle?
Well, lovely to chat with you. Would you, because I've been set this goal of 3 podcasts a week, I know, Danielle, you've offered, and I would love to take you up on that, and Katya as well, if you'd be happy to, just maybe chat more than once a week sometimes, just because I don't know if I could do 2 on my own every week. But that would be awesome.
Well, for the next what, 11, 12 days, it's not a problem for me. It might be more problematic once I have kids back, but for now, as you can see, I can chat. There is no one running around.
That must be nice, though, having a bit of a break, just to kind of having the house to yourself.
It is. It feels great, and I have so many projects, and the list is this big. What I want to do.
Of course.
So you're in quarantine because of your travels.
It's just because my husband, he's still working.
Mm-hmm.
So they said that if somebody arrived from outside of the country, he has to take 2 weeks quarantine himself. So because he wants to continue working, I have to self-isolate. It's mostly for him.
How are you doing that? Because aren't you all in the same house?
We are, but our parents-in-law moved to our town, so everyone is staying with them now.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, this is your house. I've seen it. Okay. That makes sense to me now.
So the whole house is to myself. I have a dog and 2 cats here, and my meditation spot, my didgeridoo. And I can't show you downstairs because this is my computer, so the whole house is for myself. And I have all my biking equipment to do my biking and exercising. So yeah,
this is like a perfect example of Katya's life. You're looking at the room behind you. It's like there's 4 things that go all at the same time. There's 2 of this, and there's a bicycle just ready to be leapt on and cycled. It's just...
And this is my what it's called, I forgot, felting table.
There you go.
The table for my felting, so it's all here.
Awesome.
Nice.
So this is like the hub of activity.
You meditate, then you practice your circular breathing, then you jump on the bike, then you go to your felting station.
Then you get on the computer and off you go.
Keeping yourself busy, that's for sure.
All right. Well, it was lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, you too. And so should we maybe speak in a few days, since take advantage of the fact that we're all free. Or Danielle, I know you're working, but maybe later in the week, maybe Saturday.
Yeah, whenever you're free. If you still wanted to do tomorrow, since you suggested that we could do it tomorrow, I'm free tomorrow too.
Another idea, we have a big list of the topics, so we can start going through them too.
Yeah, that's true.
Whichever is the first one, then just keep going down the list. And they don't always have to be that long. If we feel it's done, then it's done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like we have to suck something out of the finger.
Yeah. Suck something out of the finger. I love that. That's awesome. I have visions of you, right? I'm getting down to the bone. I'll do it.
And you know what? We can add some laughs at the end. I think it will be a nice ending.
Yeah.
It reminds me, you remember that Chinese channel? That girl that does all the leaves of the farm and...
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce it. Lee CQ or whatever her name is. Yeah.
Anyway, she likes to finish her channel with her grandmother, and they're both eating something and they have good laugh. Not all the time, but it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.